I'll seek you out, flay you alive.
Hey guys, Pogo here, and welcome to the next episode of BanManagement. In this episode, we are going to take a look at modals, and we're going to replace the add ban page with two modals. A modal is essentially like a pop-up window, but instead of being an intrusive pop-up that blocks your entire window and doesn't look too nice, Bootstrap actually makes really nice looking windows that only pop up within the web page. So you could go to other pages in your browser, do other things with your browser, and it's not completely intrusive. It just occupies the one page that it's on. And once we get one of these working, you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about and why it's better. So we have this add ban page that's in charge of either adding a ban or editing a ban that already exists, but I don't think it's the nicest looking page, and it's not terribly intuitive. If you want to edit a ban, you shouldn't have to go to another page to edit it and then be redirected back. I think it should just be a nice pop-up window that allows you to, easily do the editing. So today we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to see how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to define a bunch of nested divs that define the modal, but the modal is not going to be visible unless someone clicks a button. So on the index page there's a plus button that will trigger it, and on the ban page there's an edit button that will trigger the modal. So by default it will be invisible, but when the button is clicked it will come up. It'll have the ability, of course, to be closed, and then you can save the changes, which will apply them correctly. So let's go ahead and start with the index page, because that's going to be a little bit easier, and we're going to add the modal so that it will pop up instead of redirecting. One important thing is that if you're going to use the modal, ignore this script line for a second. If you're going to use the modal, you're going to need, if you have Bootstrap installed under JavaScript, you need bootstrap.min.js, because that's what's going to make the modal be able to pop up. So make sure that you have that. And also, in order to use bootstrap.min.js, you need to have jQuery. You can just copy this line from the code and paste it in. You just need some copy of jQuery. You could stash it locally, or you could use Google or some other CDN that has it hosted. But you need jQuery first, then your Bootstrap.js that will allow the modal to work, and then if you have any custom code, that would go right under that right there. We will, on the ban page, to edit the ban, we will, I guess on both pages we will. So let's go ahead and we'll define the modal at the very bottom. It's not going to be visible initially, but when it is, it will work fine. So we're going to go ahead and define it. The class is going to be first modal, and then I can add the fade class, which will make it fade in. So when it appears, it'll look pretty nice. There are a couple of other things that we need. We're going to need the ID, which we'll just call modal, because we need to be able to tell where the modal is so that we can show and hide it. So the ID is essential for that. Go ahead and write tab index equals -1. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% sure what that does, but I believe it's important. And then we're going to write that the role is dialog. It is a dialog box, so we're just denoting that that is what it does. So inside of here, we need the modal-dialog class, and that's going to sort of be the wrapper for everything. Inside of there, we need the Modal Contents, if I can spell that right, content class, and this is going to be all of the content. So the dialog is the general pop-up window that you see. The content is exactly what's inside of it, and there are three parts to that. There's first going to be the modal header, then the body, then the footer. So we'll go ahead and first say we have the modal header, and inside the header, that would be your title and stuff. So the first thing that we're going to put in there is a button with the class of being close, and that's going to be the kind of X button that will allow you to close it if you want to. And then we also need to say data dismiss equals modal, so it will dismiss, the modal. And I think we can just do, what is it going to be? We want to have the X icon here, and it's going to be glyph icon close, I believe. Let's just see if that one's going to work. And that should display a close button. If not, I will, of course, fix it. And then we also need the title. So that's going to be an H4 with the class being modal title. And then we're just going to write the title. So we'll just call it add ban. And that's going to be, the title of this modal pop-up window. After this, we have the body. And then after that, we have the modal footer. And the footer is going to be at the very bottom, and that's where we will have the submit button. Now, first we need to have our form out here, because the modal body is going to contain the text fields that we need, and then the footer is going to contain the submit button. So we have our form out here, and the target is going to be API/add.php, and the method is going to be post. So it's post arguments, but it's going to this add.php. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to change this so that it redirects to the correct location. So instead of going back to the index, it'll actually go to that ban page. So we have to change the update and add function so that they actually return that data. Okay, so inside of the body, I'm just going to go to this add ban page that we have, and we need exactly this stuff right here. We don't need the ID, but here we go. So we're going to stick this in there. We're going to take this submit button, and we're going to stick that in the footer, and then here we're going to have everything else. So the UUID and the reason, and that's going to submit to add.php. Finally, we need the button to actually toggle the modal so that it will show up. So we're going to change this. Instead of onClick being a redirect to add ban, we're going to delete that part, and we are going to say that this is the data toggle for ID modal. I'm sorry, so this is it's the data toggle for modal, but the data target is ID modal. So this button, we're saying this button is a toggle for a modal, and the target is pound mobile, and that's the ID of modal, which is right there. So let's see if this actually works. Here is the BanManagement page. I need to reload it, of course. And if I hit that plus button, you'll see that we get a nice looking pop-up. This X is not quite right, but I will fix that. And we have right here, you can type in the UUID and the reason, and then we have our nice submit button right there. So, I can press the plus button, and let's actually try this out and see if it works. So I'm going to just quickly copy this UUID, and notice to close this pop-up you can, hit away or press the X button, and I will make that next. And also note, this doesn't do anything. I can still, click buttons up here and whatever. This only affects the page inside of it, and it has a nice animation, and it goes very well with the rest of the site. So that's why I like it so much. But we're going to say this reason is going to be modal test. And if I hit submit, you'll see that it redirects, and alright, let's see. And it appears that that did not actually work. So let me just take a look at why. It might have something to do with the values or whatever. So give me 1 second. So I've decided that the best way to handle this is to use a little bit of jQuery instead of what we were trying to do before. So instead of the form redirecting to the add.php page, I think it would make more sense to actually submit the data in the background and then redirect. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like. So first we're going to remove the target and method from form because everything's going to be handled in here, but we do need to give it an ID, which I'll call form, because we're going to need access to it. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a script at the bottom that will be in charge of connecting to add and doing all of that stuff. So we're going to write our script tag, if I could spell it right. Excuse me. Alright, and in here we're going to be using some jQuery. So I did start a series on this. This might be a little bit confusing because I haven't shown this yet, but just don't worry about it. So the first thing we need is our document.ready, and this will happen once the page is ready to start doing JavaScript stuff. This is where we want to begin. And first we're going to find the form, the ID of form, and we're going to redefine the submit function. So submit, we're going to stick a function in here, and this function does take one parameter, which is the event, and the first thing that we need is e.preventDefault, because by default the form is going to do the redirect, but we don't want it to redirect, so by preventing the default, we can have it ignore that and it won't redirect. So let's go ahead and get the data. So the UUID we can get by grabbing the ID of UUID. Make sure you have IDs on these, ID, UUID, and ID reason. So we can do that, and we use the val function, and that will return the value of the text fields. So then we can get the reason. So now we have the two pieces of data that we need to know, and we can go ahead and say, now we can send the post request to, we can send it to add. So we do $.post. This is, the jQuery, $ is jQuery. So jQuery has this post function that makes it really easy. So I can say we're going to post to add, and the data that we're going to give is the UUID is going to be the variable UUID, and the data for reason is going to be the value of the variable reason. So that's the data that we're sending off. And then finally we're going to have a function that takes in the data that we got back, and then the data that we get back will be the ID of the ban, so we can simply redirect it now by saying location.href equals ban.php ID equals, and then whatever the data is that we get back, and we will need to change the result of add. So now what will happen is when I run the form, when I hit the submit button, instead of redirecting me somewhere, it's going to send this post request in the background, and once it has sent the data and it gets its response, it will go ahead and redirect me exactly how I want it to, and that should not be localhost, that should be location, sorry. Okay, so give me 1 second to pause. I need to remove my password from the API.php because we need to change a couple functions in there. So we're over here, and we need to actually just change the add function. We need it to return the ID that we get. With the update function, we already know what the ID is. It's not going to change. But for the add function, when it's brand new, we will need to know that information. Okay, so first we send off the query of inserting into bans. And now we'll go ahead, and I guess the easiest way I can think of to do this right now is to, again, get MySQL, and we can query select ID from bans, where UUID is equal to UUID, and date is equal to, let's just go ahead and store this variable just in case. It's just a little bit easier, and it looks a little bit better. And date is equal to date, and reason is equal to reason. So we query that, and then we fetch associative, and then we get the index of ID. So that should return the ID of whatever is just put, and I think that should work. Finally, over in add, instead of changing the header to be the index page, we're just going to say return, and let's go ahead and set up a variable where we say $ID, and then in this case we'll say ID is equal to whatever we got in post. Otherwise we will say that the ID is equal to the result of add. And I guess we don't really need to define that up there. But then we just return $ID, so that'll return the variable whether it's the post ID or the result of that add, and then it should redirect us to the correct place. So let me fix the API file and let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to reload this page. I'm going to hit plus UUID. I don't have that copied correctly. So let me copy the UUID, and then the reason we will give will be, let's just say, testing modal. And I hit submit, and it just redirected me to, well, let's find out. I guess I can put the address up there. It's fine. To the ID of nothing. So it clearly did not receive, oh, I'm sorry. I wrote return ID. That really doesn't make any sense. I meant to just echo ID. That's all. And I suppose it should work now. Let's just go back and we'll just sorry about that. We'll just reload, and it actually does say testing modal, because even though it redirected me to the wrong page, it still did work. So let's just go ahead and say test number 2, and I'll hit submit, and now you can see it redirects me to the correct page. Reason is test number 2, the date is clearly right now, and the UUID is exactly what I put in. So even if I reload here, you'll see that the date is now there. So instead of using that file, instead of using the add ban page, we now use a modal, which I think looks a lot nicer. It shows up on this page directly, and you don't need to worry about, you don't have to worry about, redirecting to another page and then redirecting again. It just makes more sense, and it's a lot cleaner. So give me 1 second, and then we will take a look at fixing the edit page as well. So one quick thing before we go on, to get that close button to work right, you just have to grab this line, which is on the Bootstrap website. I just had it putting the wrong thing in. You just need to put this span to be inside, and now you can see that it's actually, oops, sorry, let me reload. Now it's actually an X instead of the weird square that it was before. But now we're going to take this exact same thing, pretty much, and we're going to stick it into the ban.php page, so that when the edit button is clicked, instead of on click being a redirect, it will actually pop up a modal. So first, let's go ahead and copy. Actually, we need the modal and all of the script stuff at the bottom. So we're going to stick that right below where the body, right above the end of the body, at the very bottom. And then we need to change the title to be edit ban. We need to change, these need to have values. So the value of UUID is going to default to whatever ban at index UUID is. Not values, value. And then, okay, good. And then this value is going to be whatever the reason is. And we also need the hidden one, which will be the ID. And the ID is the get variable of ID. Okay. Alright, so, oops, let's just fix that. Okay, so now we have this hidden, which is the hidden input, which has the ID, because that does need to be passed on to the script so we can tell that it is being edited instead of created. And that's all we need to do there. The other thing we need here is we need to add the ID argument, where we'll just grab that. So ID will be the value of ID. You could also just echo you could also echo PHP's get arg. You could, put this code right in there, but either one will work. So we need to send that off, and this time, yeah, so we'll just go ahead and do this. So it will reload the page after it's finished, and then it will have the new data with it. So let's go ahead and make sure that we also test this one. So we'll go over to ban number 17, and we're going to click edit. Oh, I'm sorry, that still redirects us. I forgot. Edit, we need to delete the on click, and this is going to be a data targets of a modal, sorry, the toggle, I believe. It's going to toggle a modal, and the target is the ID modal. So that should work, unless I mixed it up. Okay, good. So edit ban comes up, and you'll see that it has the UUID and the name that it is supposed to have, the one that it had before. And let's go ahead and change this to be test number 3 and see if it works. So hit submit, and it's reloaded. It says test number 3. And if I go back, sorry, to the menu, you'll see that it says test number 3. So at this point, we can delete the add ban page. Just to quickly take a look at it, here is what the add ban page looks like. It's definitely not the nicest looking thing, and it was a little bit maybe confusing, especially writing add/edit ban at the top. It really didn't look that nice. I think it makes a lot more sense to have a nice little modal pop-up, and we clearly saw that both of them work. So adding a modal or adding a ban and also editing a ban, both will pop up correctly. So that is pretty good. So that's all for this episode. We made the website a little bit better, and we also learned about modals, which are nice looking pop-ups that aren't intrusive like the JavaScript alert. So as always, subscribe if you want to see more. Comment with what you want to learn. If you like this video, click the like button, and I'll see you guys soon with some more coding videos. Bye for now.